Good morning. Praise the Lord, everyone. It's great to see everyone here this morning, braving the elements, the cold weather, on this fine, cool Louisiana morning. We let the dogs out this morning, and Quinley, our smallest one, I don't think she'd ever seen frost before, so she was stepping high and looking all crazy, and well, it's that time. But it's great to be here this morning. I'd like to thank Pastor Derek for this opportunity. We never take it lightly to stand behind this podium and bring you the Word of God as it's been presented to us. It's good to see everyone here this morning. We're going to go into our second lesson in a series called Stealing Christmas. And it's easy to let things steal Christmas from us. Or the real reason for Christmas, the stress of the holidays, shopping for the perfect gift, trying to get something you think they might appreciate or might want or might not already have, and planning family events. It's always stressful, especially if you got crazy people in your family like some of us do. You wonder, boy, should we invite them this year, or we just pretend like, we're not really doing anything, we're not getting together. And then you got to fight the traffic, and then you got your work schedule you're trying to figure out. And so today, as we wrap up this series, I'd like to talk about a subject that might make some of us uncomfortable: selfishness. The me-first spirit that seems to be so prevalent today in this world that we're living in. Thankfully, there's a biblical remedy for this problem. It's called joy. Luke, the second chapter, and you'll just have to follow me along as I read it. We had a miscommunication this morning, and it's not going to be up on the screen, so we'll have to do it the old-fashioned way. Back in the day, you had somebody that read for you over here, and, it got to go on. You know what I'm talking about, Pastor. Back and forth. And God said, here we go. Luke, the second chapter, verse 10 and 11 said, "Then the angel said unto them, Be not afraid. I bring you good tidings of great joy, which will be to all people." Very familiar scriptures. Verse 11 says, "For there is born to you this day in the city of David a Savior, who is Christ the Lord." But this was going to be great joy to all people. Matthew, the second chapter, verse 10 says, "And when they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy." And putting that on pause for just a minute, we all know that the reason for the season is Christ being born and bringing joy and salvation to this world. But in life, even the best circumstances and the best relationships go through ups and downs. We all go through it. You're not going to be happy all the time in a relationship. And if you think you are, you're delusional. You married a human being. They're going to have a bad day occasionally. Your friends are human beings. They're going to have bad days. Human beings, because we are fleshly and of a sinful nature, we are incurably self-centered. All of us. People get sick, they argue, they whine, they complain. We have misunderstandings. We can all be inconsiderate at times. And sometimes things just don't go right. Life's just not happening good right now. Life's not a constant honeymoon. Oh, yeah, it's all great for the first 6, 8, 10 weeks, because you haven't really gotten to the point to where you are annoyed by things that they do, and they're not annoyed with the things that you do, the little habits that you're picking up on, you're learning. Well, she leaves the toothpaste out all the time, and I used to put mine up every day. Or every time I turn around, there's a pair of shoes laying in the floor. Can't you just pick your shoes up and put them up? Or he comes home and takes his clothes off and doesn't put them in the hamper, but he puts them beside the hamper on the floor. Or unwrap a wrapper and lay it on the countertop. Just things that begin to irritate you that you didn't notice at first because the stars were in your eyes and you were so in love. And this was the perfect man, the perfect woman. No such thing, friend. Trust me. So these things happen. Life's not a constant honeymoon. And then, bad days happen. Here's some humor for you. You know you're going to have a bad day when your horn sticks on the freeway behind 32 Hells Angels. It's not going to be good. Or you get all the way to work and remember you were scheduled off today. Didn't even have to come in. That's going to be a bad day. And here's one that recently kind of caught me was, you're going to have a bad day when your birthday cake collapses from the weight of all the candles on it. Or your 4-year-old tells you it's almost impossible to flush a grapefruit down the toilet. Or here's a good one. You call your wife and tell her you want to eat out tonight. And when you get home, there's a bologna sandwich on the front porch. So those are things that might initiate a bad day. But the point is, life is sometimes a disaster and sometimes it's very challenging. So when we look at relationships, whether it's in a marriage or a friendship, we always say, I just want to be happy. And the problem with that attitude is it can lead to an attitude of selfishness, which means I want what I want. James 4th chapter, verses 1 and 2 in the New International Version said, what causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from your desires that battle within you? Verse 2, you desire, but you do not have, so you kill. You covet, but you cannot get what you want, so you quarrel and fight. You do not have because you do not ask God. In verse 2, it says, since you can't get what you want, you argue and fight. I remember as a child growing up, there was a young man that lived in our area. We played with him. He was one of our friends, quote unquote. But if you got something nice, like a new bicycle or a new Tonka truck or any kind of new toy that was nice, this child, he had nice things, but he was the kind of kid that he wanted to have everything better than the next person. So if you got a new bicycle, you didn't dare let him ride it because he would ride it off out of sight. And when it come back, he might have kicked one of the spokes to bend it, or he might have scratched the paint with a sharp object. He was envious and jealous of anything new or nice that somebody else had, even though he had nice things within himself. But because he didn't have it personally, he would fight and argue and try to take away from what you had or diminish it in some way or destroy it even. And I've actually been around adults who could not be happy for someone else's good fortune because they were so self-centered. If you pulled up to the church parking lot in a new F-250 extended cab, tricked out with nice wheels and tires, man, you would just, man, I've been waiting for years to buy this truck. And I've saved money. And I've realized that I can make the $700 a month payment. And I'm pulling up, and, man, I'd roll the window down so people could hear the nice stereo. And this gentleman walks up and says, that's a nice truck, but I wouldn't want the payment. I mean, come on, man. Can't you just be happy for me? No, because you're driving a truck that's 20 years old because you won't work a steady enough job to afford a truck like this. That's why you said you didn't want the payment, because you couldn't afford the payment, because you didn't have enough integrity to keep a good job that would afford you to drive a new F-250. So we have these self-centered motives and this attitude that if I can't have it, I don't want you to have it. You see what I'm saying? So selfishness is a root of a problem in a lot of relationships. And the difficulties that we go through, it's a power struggle. And insecure people, it starts with the struggle in their own selves. You know, for a lot of us, to solve relational problems, wherein the solution is simply to grow up and stop being self-centered. James 3rd chapter, verse 16. For wherever there is jealousy and selfish ambition, there you will find disorder and evil of every kind. In other words, you can't be joyful and jealous at the same time. And the enemy wants nothing more than to steal your joy and replace it with jealousy and resentment. Selfishness undermines relationships. You have to get the focus off of yourself. You know, when Jamie and I first got married, I was used to being by myself all the time. I mean, I lived if I wasn't in an RV by myself, I was in an apartment by myself. I didn't have to worry about somebody else needing food or groceries or chocolate chip cookies or Oreo cookies. So whenever we got together, I'm in there making my lunch. If there's 4 cookies left in the bag, I'll take them all. You know, I'm used to it. If I'm out of cookies, I'll pick some up on the way home because it was just me. It was just I. But I didn't remember until it was too late that there's a little girl sleeping in the next bedroom who's going to school the same day who likes Oreo cookies and chocolate chip cookies. And there's a little boy that likes as much red grapes as I do. But if I take all of them, because I'm a grown man, I'll do what I want to. No, you have to get the focus off of yourself in a relationship. You can't be selfish. You can't take and take and take. And now sometimes I won't take all the grapes, and they'll spoil because nobody's touching them. They're saving them for me, and I'm saving them for them. So we throw grapes away because they turned to raisins in the refrigerator. But you learn to adjust from selfishness to I, me, mine, to hey, there's somebody else living in this house too. But we hurt each other in our relationships, sometimes intentionally, sometimes unintentionally, but it's a fact because we're selfish. What you do that will hurt makes a difference whether you're joyful or you're miserable. Nothing can destroy a relationship faster than resentment. It happens quick. Hebrews 12th chapter, verse 15. Look at each other so that not one of you will fail to find God's blessings. Watch out that no bitterness take root among you, for as it springs up, it causes deep trouble, hurting many in their spiritual lives. Selfishness can bring resentment. It eats up emotional energy because you spend all your time resenting the fact that someone hurt you. And it also brings fear, which causes you to build up walls between each other. I wasted a lot of energy and sabotaged potential friendships because I harbored resentment from being hurt. Forgiveness doesn't free those who hurt you, but it releases the hold that they have over your emotions. Forgiveness is required. Respect has to be earned. One of the things that my Aunt Jan Yeats, she was married to my dad's twin brother. She was dying of cancer, trusting God all the way. And I went to see her about 2 months before she passed this world. And one of the things she shared with me, she knew what was going on in my life, and she knew the situations I was dealing with, the problems and frustration and issues in my marriage and my first marriage, and I was just really going through hell on earth. And she looked at me. She reached out her little frail hand. She held my hand, looked me straight in the eye. And she told me, those were those words she said. She said, forgiveness is required. It's biblical. God tells you numerous times you must forgive 7 times 70 a day. How many times is that a year? That's a lot of junk to put up with. That's a lot of things that you've got to deal with and you've got to put behind you. But she said forgiveness is required, but respect has to be earned. If you keep hurting me, Pastor, if you keep doing things to me, I'm going to forgive you, but I'm going to be cautious around you. And so when you forgive someone, it releases you of that burden of resentment and frustration and hatred. And I know what that's like. I've experienced that in my life. I know what it's like to be hurt. I know what it's like to be hurt at the house of God. I know what it's like to have the confidence in the ministry torn down, and you get an idea in your head, I'll never go back to church again. I will never trust another preacher in my life. And I harbored that, and I held on to it for such a long time. It became a part of my nature. Fear and hatred and frustration. I didn't want to forgive anybody. I thrived on that feeling of that adrenaline rush that came with being angry at someone all the time. Couldn't be happy because I was miserable. I didn't know what joy was. Joy was something I'd never experienced in my life. Yeah, I'd had happy moments. I'd have times where a good thing would happen, and man, this is good right here. Or you won the bid on a big job, and boy, you could see the light at the end of the tunnel financially. That was a happy moment. But there was no joy because eventually the job was done and the money was spent and money was put here or put there, and that moment, that circumstantial happiness was over with. And fear will make you defensive. You won't admit when you're wrong. And when you have that resentment, fearful people from being hurt, you don't want to commit to anything. You want to put yourself back out there because I've been hurt, I've been damaged, I've been bruised. So I'm not going to forgive. I'm going to hold on to it. Don't ever do that. Trust me. Take it from a fool who knows what he's talking about. When you hold on to that and you harbor it, it will eat you up like a cancer. It'll make you resentful. It'll make you hate your own life because you're so angry and you're scared on the inside. And I'm the kind of guy that's not scared of anything. In fact, I pride myself in not jumping when you try to spook me. You know, when I was a kid growing up, my grandpa, he's always trying to sneak around the barn and scare you. You'd be out there feeding the horses. Boy, he'd jump out, and my little brothers, boy, they'd run screaming to the house. And he done it to me a couple of times, but it made me mad when I would jump. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, man, he made me mad. He made me jump. But I would steel myself. I got to where you couldn't scare me. You jump at me, and I just, my heart would probably jump out of my chest from the adrenaline rush. But I didn't jump. I wasn't fearful. But being afraid is something I don't like. But it happens sometimes. When you're fearful of something, it makes you distant. It makes you don't want to share your feelings. Fear makes you demanding. You always want to be in control. I don't want to be out of control. I want to keep everything. But the Bible says in 1 John 4:18, said, there is no fear in love. But perfect love casts out fear, because fear involves torment. But he who fears has not been made perfect in love. Most people try to do something to bring happiness into a troubled relationship, but that's only a temporary solution. I've got a friend in Missouri, and he has 4 daughters. And this man was, bless his heart, he was so jealous of his wife and 4 daughters. He was miserable. He could not function properly. If one of his daughters, especially when they got into their teens, I mean, this man lost his mind. When they got into their teens, they go to their friend's house, and they may come back home from their friend's house with lip gloss on. And this guy would lose it. What are you doing over there? You're turning into a harlot, and just rant and rant and rant, on and on and on. And then after he would rant, then he would feel bad. And so the next day he'd load everybody up and go to town, and he'd spend $300-400 a piece on them, buying them, new clothes and designer handbags and things of this nature, trying to bring back happiness into that relationship. But it wasn't joy. It wasn't a peace. He was just trying to buy himself out of trouble. And so many times I see people that thrive for happiness, but they don't pursue joy. The difference is happiness is a pleasurable or satisfying experience. It's a circumstantial emotion. Joy, it's closely related, but listen to it. Joy is the abiding and pervasive sense of well-being. Joy continues to last even after the happy moments of the circumstances have faded. We hear people say, man, if I could only do this, I'd be happy. Or if someone else would do that, then I could be happy. But too many people have a destination sense toward happiness. Life's not a destination, it's a journey. You keep moving. Paul said, I press toward the mark of the high calling of Christ Jesus. I'm always reaching for something else. I'm always pursuing it. You know, we reach that point in our lives where, you know, we think we've arrived. And, boy, if I can get to this point in my life, I'll be happy. My 401k is solid. My retirement's solid. But those things can disappear overnight, ladies and gentlemen. Those things can go in a blink of an eye in our economy. The grass might be green on the other side of the fence, but the water bill's higher. Or that's where they've spread the most manure over the property. So you have to be cautious about the green grass. You know, and after people make drastic changes and they walk away from marriages or they quit decent jobs or they switch careers or they move across the country to a new location or they build a new house or buy a new car or they get the promotion they've been wanting, they still have to live with themselves, so they're still unhappy. They're not pursuing joy. They're pursuing the thrill of the moment. Nowhere in the Bible does God advise us to pursue happiness because happiness is selfish. It's not even a biblical concept. The word happiness is only used 22 times in the Bible. And it never means that we have been conditioned to think, it never means what we've been conditioned to think about it today. In the Bible, happy doesn't mean everything is working out and going my way. It means blessed or favored by God. Happiness is extremely vulnerable. Happiness wrapped in people is insecure because people will let you down. Happiness centered in possessions is unsure because material goods deteriorate and depreciate. You buy that new pickup truck, brother, and the minute you drive it off the lot, it ain't worth what you paid for it. That quick. That's how fast things depreciate. You can't put your trust in that. Happiness based on health is unreliable because time takes its toll on all of us. If you don't believe you're getting older, get in your truck, drive from here to New Orleans, get out to go to work, and when your feet touch the ground in the morning, they hurt. You know what I'm talking about? Or you get back in your truck and you drive all the way home and you try to get out of the truck and it feels like your joints have fused together on I-10 all the way from the port of New Orleans. You can't rely on health. It will fail you. Happiness grounded in social achievement is unpredictable because sooner or later, someone else's star will outshine your star. It's going to happen. So everything we build our happiness on will eventually double cross us. This is why the world is so full of selfish and cynical and discouraged people. And this is why we live in an age of despair. People have tried everything to obtain happiness and it never lasts. Drugs, alcohol, party lifestyle, only to wake up and be hungover and disappointed, lonely, and depressed. Look, in no way I'm saying it's wrong to pursue happiness because we need those moments in our lives. But there's a difference in being happy and being joyful. The Bible is very clear that joy is what we should thrive for. Here's why. In contrast to happiness, which is self-centered, the Bible uses the words joy, joyful, or rejoice over 160 times. Happiness is a state of well-being and contentment. Joy is the emotion evoked by well-being or by the prospect of possessing what one desires. It teaches us that joy only comes from the Spirit of God living in us. And here's some comparisons for you. Happiness is self-centered, but joy is God-centered. Happiness is external, joy is internal. Happiness is temporary, joy is permanent. Happiness is based on chance, but joy is based on choice. Happiness is based on circumstances, but joy is based on Christ. Joy doesn't come from making me happy. Joy comes from making other people happy. God designed it that way. One of the most selfish people or unselfish people that I know, most giving, go out of their way to make sure everybody else has what they have in their life, is my wife. I have never met anybody that is so giving, so selfless as she is. She will do without to make sure Lincoln and London and Anthony have what they need. Go out of her way, no matter how tired she is, no matter how frustrated life has made her that day, no matter what the school has thrown against her, and all 126 kids that she's teaching have drove her crazy. But when she comes home, she still gives to us. And you know what? That doesn't bring her happiness. That brings her joy. Because there are days when I know that that moment is not bringing her happiness, because she's not in a good mood, if I could put it like that. She's stressed, she's frustrated, but she still does what she needs to do to make sure we have what we need. She cooks when she don't want to. She makes meals for me when I know she'd rather just put a bowl of cereal on the table and say, hey, it's the best I got tonight, bub. And I'd eat it and shut up. But she goes out of her way. Why? Because she has created the atmosphere of joy in our home. There's an atmosphere at 106 Chantilly Circle that people can't purchase. You can't buy it. It's joy at my house. Am I happy? Yes, but I'm also full of joy because I know what it's like to live in a house that's not a home. I know what it's like to come home to chaos and frustration and aggravation and think, man, I should have stayed at work. I should have just went ahead and worked all night long because I don't want to deal with what I got to open this door to. But she has created an atmosphere, and that's joy for me. It's not just happiness. When we first got married, it was happiness. But now it has grown into something that is tangible. It's joyful. And when our children have friends over, they don't want to leave. I'm not kidding you. London's friends come over and they say, is y'all's house always this clean? And London, well, yeah, it's just the way we live, you know. It's because we've created a good atmosphere. And mom and daddy don't scream and holler and fuss and fight all the time. We don't raise our voices. We don't throw things. I don't tear up the furniture. I don't put holes in the walls. She doesn't rant and rave and nag because we have created an atmosphere of joy. Not just a selfish situation where I want what I want and I'll get what I want to get, and woman, you better do this, and man, you better do that. No, that's not joy. That's chaos. That's frustration. But joy doesn't come from making me happy. It comes from making everybody else happy. Paul said, I die daily because every day I'm trying to solve problems. Happiness doesn't come, or joy doesn't come with problems every day and you're just dealing with them. You have to focus on the direction that you're going, the future. I'm going to make this work. Life is simply a series of solving problems. If the only time you learn to have joy in your relationships is when you got all your problems solved, you're never going to have joy in your relationships or your life. Because life is always going to bring something to your door that you're going to have to deal with. And if you allow that to steal your joy is shallow. You're not living in joy. You're living in happiness. You're living in momentary happy times. You're not living in a deep, joyful relationship. You got to learn to have joy in the middle of your troubles, middle of your problems. Philippians 4:4 said, rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I'll say rejoice. Paul said, I said it once, I'm going to say it to you one more time. Rejoice in the Lord always. How in the world could he be joyful when he wrote most of the Bible of the New Testament when he was in prison, when he was being persecuted? He's about to be executed when he was writing Philippians church, the church in Philippians. And the book is full of nothing but be joyful. 19 times in Philippians he used the word joy and rejoice. In prison. not getting his last meal all the time, probably living on bread and water. The circumstances and situations in a prison back in those days weren't quite like what we have here in the United States. There wasn't cable vision. There wasn't your own toilet and your own restroom facility and your own bed and your own bunk. And if you didn't like your cellmates, you could protest enough and they'd put somebody else in there. He had to go where he was told and do what he was told. But the only thing he wanted was, hey, bring me some more parchment. I got something I need to write down and send to the people of God. Lord just spoke this to me last night. I'm going to write that down because they need to hear what I've got to say. He wasn't counting on his circumstances to bring him happiness. He was counting on the Holy Ghost to give him joy. David said in Psalm 16:11, I will show you the path of life, and in your presence is fullness of joy, and at your right hand, pleasure forevermore. When I don't have joy, it's a warning light that I don't have God's presence in my life. The enemy will steal your joy. And if there's a very specific order to have and keep joy in your life, you need me to break it down in layman's terms so you can understand the difference between happiness and joy. Here we go. Happiness is your mom buying you an ice cream cone on a hot summer day. We've all been there. It's wonderful. Man, you can't be mad and lick an ice cream cone. I don't care who you are. When you stick your tongue out of your mouth and slurp up on one of those ice cream cones from Dairy Queen, and it dribbles down the corner of your mouth, and boy, you don't wipe it away. You try to lick it. You run your tongue 3 inches out of your mouth to get that last drop of ice cream off of your chin because you're not going to spill any of it. Happiness is your mom buying you an ice cream cone on a hot summer day, but joy is finding out your dad just bought a Dairy Queen franchise and you have unlimited access to the ice cream machine. That's joy. Happiness is a good paycheck every Friday, but joy is winning the Publishers Clearinghouse $5,000 a week for the rest of your life sweepstakes. That's joy, ladies and gentlemen, because we all get a paycheck. Happiness is getting that special gift you wanted for Christmas. But joy is looking around yourself on Christmas Day and realizing everybody you want and love are right in the same room with you. Happiness is that moment at an altar of prayer where your life was changed by joy. But joy is knowing that the forgiving power that you received in that moment will follow you the rest of your life as you walk in the order of the Lord, leading you, guiding you, loving you, protecting you, healing you, providing and covering you, keeping you, shielding you, and defending you. That's what joy is. That's what joy is. You know, and I'm winding up quicker than I thought I would this morning. But joy, J-O-Y, someone put it like this: J is for Jesus, O is for others, and Y is for you. So Nehemiah said in chapter 8, verse 10, he said, for the joy of the Lord is your strength. And as we go into this Christmas this week, I challenge you to look about you. Find those things in your life that you know bring joy. Those two boys sitting right there beside you. They don't bring happiness all the time, I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure there's times when Sister Jamie wants to jerk a knot in their trot line, you know. But they bring joy because you watch them grow, watch them mature. And you watch how the way you train in them becomes part of their character and part of their personality. You develop them. That's joy. Happiness is when they clean their room. Happiness is when you don't have to tell them to go take a bath. That's a struggle that we are still doing. And happiness is when you say, go take a shower. He says, I already had a shower, Mom. Oh, man, we're on to something here, right? That's happiness. But joy is watching them develop and grow and becoming someone with a personality, and you see the way that they're developing and they're becoming a young man or a young woman, and they have good scruples and they have a good attitude, and they're caring and they're kind and they love each other and they love you and they show respect to adults around them. That's joy. That's the part of joy that comes with raising children. Happiness is your wife's award-winning shrimp and grits that you eat for the first time back in 2014. And you look across the table at her, and you're not even interested in each other at this time and probably don't even know each other, but you look across the table at her and say, you're going to make somebody a good wife one of these days. But joy is 7 years later when you're married to her. And she helps you build a home and a place where you can come home and you're safe and you feel loved and you feel comforted. And there's always something good there. And there's always a presence of kindness and long-suffering and gentleness and mercy. And you're not scared to come home anymore. You're not worried about your money. You're not worried about what you're going to come home to, because you know there's an anchor there. There's joy. There's perfection. There's awesomeness. There's love. There's mercy. And there's a little girl that lives there too that can get about anything she wants, because there's joy in your heart. Those are joyful things. Look around you this Christmas. Don't just look at the wrapping paper. Don't just look at the new wallet or the new purse or the new house slippers or whatever other kind of gifts you get, the new blender on the counter or the travel mug you've been lusting after for your pickup truck, and all these things that you want, that you think you need. If you didn't get anything for Christmas, would there still be joy in your heart? Think about it. Are we just so caught up in the commercialism of Christmas that, if we don't get exactly what we want, are we going to be disappointed? Or are we going to look around that living room at the people that have been with us all year long and think, you know what, I really got everything I need right here. We've got a nice home. We got food on the table. We got the lights are still working. We got transportation. We got our health. We got love. We got kindness. We got each other. If you don't get anything for Christmas, will you still be happy? Don't let this world steal your joy. Don't let this commercialized Christmas spirit become part of you. But remember why that baby was born. Remember why he came. He came so that we could have joy, not just a moment of happiness. Oh yeah, I've had happy things, happy times in church. There's been experiences in church that made me smile and made me laugh. But after the lights go out and the music's over with and I walk outside, I've got the joy of the Lord in my heart. I've got the Spirit of the Lord leading me and guiding me and keeping me through every situation and every trial that I go through. It's not just happiness living for God, but it's the awesome joy of the Lord. That's our strength. That's what we pull from, even in circumstances where it doesn't look like we're going to make it. Happiness might be getting the last chemo treatment at the hospital and finding out that the insurance is going to pay 100% for it. But joy is walking out of there with the doctor saying, I don't know what happened, but it's gone. It's not even here anymore. Something happened. That's joy right there. Yeah, happiness is not having to be responsible for all the bills and somebody came and took care of your medical expenses, but joy is walking out of that hospital cancer-free and never having to worry about it again, because the almighty healer that was born and laid in a manger 2,000 years ago came and said, hey, I came to give you joy, and joy unspeakable and full of glory. So don't let this world steal your Christmas this year. But remember what it was all about. And I'm finished, and you got 5 extra minutes to go get your children. They always want us to go get the kids for some reason, Brother Randall. Probably because the people that have them don't have the same amount of joy for those that you do. So they're happy to see you come and get your kids. So go get your children. Thank you so much for your attention. God bless you. I hope we gave you something today that can help you through this holiday. I love every one of you.